Welcome.
To... You knew I was going to do
You were waiting for that. Welcome to the Workshop Therapy Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew, and joining me today is my wife.
Sorry, it's been a long day.
Are you burnt out?
I am burnt out, yes. I'm a teacher, and it's 2 weeks from Christmas, and we still have another week of class.
That is a recipe for burnout right there. But, as promised, currently I have outlined a 3-episode series on burnout. So today's episode is going to be identifying...
Classic burnout?
No, just
Vintage burnout?
Vintage burnout?
I don't know, I'm in that mood.
What's vintage burnout?
It's what boomers get.
Boomer burnout. No. So
Sorry.
We're going to start with identifying the root causes of burnout. And specifically, I'm going to kind of focus on creative burnout. Because...
it's like a root canal.
Yes.
Okay.
Are we going to not record today?
No, I'm totally on. Sorry. Okay. I will mask back up and we can do the burnout episode. I'm here. I'm good.
You can let the freak flag fly.
Okay.
My alliteration is off today. Anyway, so identifying the root causes of burnout, and we're going to start with creative burnout specifically, because I think most people, we could go down the whole workplace burnout and creative burnout and emotional burnout. We talked about neurodivergent burnout last time. So there's all sorts of different aspects to burnout. Anyway, so yeah, we're going to start specifically with just kind of creative burnout. So do you want to define burnout for us?
Did you write down what I was supposed to say?
You can say whatever you want, but there is a definition written down here.
Okay, let's go with the definition that's written down here.
Right there.
You have your computer on tiny type. A state of emotional, mental, and often physical exhaustion caused by prolonged engagement in creative activities. Thanks, that's better.
Now you can see it with your aging eyes. Okay. So probably a lot of people have experienced the experience of going out into the shop or into the creative space and just feeling, I don't want to do anything, right? Have you experienced that ever?
Never.
You're always on the A game and never want to sit on your chair doing the emotional doom scroll.
Ever.
That's why she's so much more productive than me and better than me. If she was in charge of building the house, our house would be done already.
Yeah, it would. But only because I have a problem with obsessive compulsive disorder and perfectionism as well.
Which, interestingly, can contribute to burnout.
And our comorbid conditions with female.
We're not talking about neurodivergence burnout today.
I don't know. I'm not. I didn't. Then maybe I should leave the podcast.
So as I was digging into some research...
with a shovel?
Yes, with a shovel. Okay. My research shovel.
Perfect.
I ran across a study by Weiss et al. Published in 2022 that was talking about clinical burnout, and their clinical burnout group, when compared to standard populations, scored lower on cognitive tests, including executive control, concentration, and they also experienced poorer nighttime sleep quality and higher levels of depression.
That's surprising.
No, it's not. But it's also one of those, like, burnout can
self-feeding cycles.
Yeah, so burnout can cause poor sleep and depression, and it's also a symptom of burnout and anyway. So the available evidence suggests that creative burnout is a common issue among individuals pursuing personal passions, and it has significant negative impacts on your cognitive ability, creativity, can't speak today, and overall well-being. And so I'm sure you've noticed that.
Yes.
Would you like to describe anybody that you know in your life that has such an issue?
No, I feel threatened and unsafe. You should probably edit that out.
You feel that I'm going to get upset at you if you start pointing the finger at me?
I told you, I still have another week of teaching, and we're 2 weeks away from Christmas.
Do you want me to just record this by myself then?
No, it's okay. What are you wanting me to talk about again? Let's review.
Well, just the significant negative impacts of burnout on cognitive abilities, creativity, and overall well-being.
Well, they're pretty much all negative, aren't they? Right?
Yeah, but
you're not able to do what you wanted to do, and so it stops like the creative flow.
Yeah.
You become unproductive. Life begins to become meaningless. Your relationships suffer. You spiral into a pit of loathing and despair. Stopping showering, making people not want to be around you. You eat poorly and gain weight and don't care.
You're definitely going down the slippery slope on that one.
I'm telling you, it is slippery.
Well, it is, but it's also not. It's easy to see it when it's in that extreme, though, right? Like, it's easy to see the person who is completely
Not for the
let it
person,
go.
though.
Well, yeah, it's not for the...
Because it didn't
maybe-
start off with like, oh, I don't want to work in my thing today. It started off with pushing themselves too hard, right?
Yeah.
Doing too much, and remember, not understanding that what's too much for me might not be what's too much for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's something I was going to talk about a little bit later, is that comparison problem.
Yep.
But it's important to remember too that like you just said, it doesn't necessarily start off at the I'm depressed, can't get out of bed, I'm eating too much and developing diabetes.
No.
Because of my overeating. It starts with feeling just worn out.
Yeah, or like something, it's just like the straw that breaks the camel's back. You're pushing, and then something doesn't work, or something breaks, and it just spirals, right?
Yeah.
I think, anyway.
And so I thought it would be important when we're talking about root causes of burnout is to kind of explain what's going on neurobiologically,
Right.
like basically going in your brain. So burnout, so your stress system in your body,
parasympathetic nervous system.
Yeah, that's part of your nervous system. Yeah, but burnout is mostly associated with sustained activation in your autonomic nervous system.
What about
Yeah, that's further on in what I was going to talk about here. That's dysfunction in your sympathetic adrenal medullary
if you sent me
axis.
these things ahead of time, I could read through them and prepare. Or I'd pretend that I read through them and prepare, because I have way too much on right now to do that, and I'm experiencing burnout. And on a slippery slope of sarcasm and bitterness.
Well, that's why I didn't send them to you, because I didn't want you to feel like you had to read them and be overwhelmed. I was just going to have a conversation with you about this.
Okay. But then I get overwhelmed because I don't know the questions beforehand, so then I'm snarky.
It's true. Okay. So I'm gonna explain.
Okay.
Just
don't have too many pauses, or I'll insert things, because
I'm going to explain the activation. I'm going to explain the activation of the nervous system, the dysfunction of the sympathetic adrenal medullary axis. And just because I'm taking your breath doesn't mean you should jump in with a snarky comment.
Okay.
So let's think of our body as a workshop, right? It's your nervous system.
Interesting mental image, but continue.
Your nervous system is the maintenance crew responsible for keeping everything running.
Little tiny elves.
Exactly. Your nerves are like little tiny elves running around fixing things.
One's angry.
Yep. So your autonomic nervous system, it has two teams. It has the go team, or your sympathetic nervous system, and this is the team that jumps in when there's an emergency or your fight or flight response.
Your overachievers.
No, just your fight or flight response. When there's something that needs immediate attention, you need to fix something right away. There's a breakdown in your tool in your shop and it needs to be fixed.
Right.
Or you're about to be eaten by a lion. Either metaphor works, right?
That happens daily.
So then you get that burst of adrenaline that comes in.
My fear of lions is high.
You use the adrenaline to focus on a task and to get the task done. Maybe you should... You keep throwing me off my game here.
Keep talking. I'll be quiet.
Okay, so your sympathetic... I'm not even going to be able to edit this. Your sympathetic nervous system is your go team. That's the one that kicks in when something needs to be done right away.
Okay. Go team.
Yes. And then there's your parasympathetic nervous system, which you brought up earlier. That's pom-poms. Yes.
Okay.
They're the rest and recharge team. So
the nurses.
Yeah, they're the team that in the shop handles kind of the routine maintenance, cleaning up, recharging the batteries, sweeping the floor, greasing the tools.
The incompetent laborers you don't trust to do anything else?
No, the ones that are responsible for cleaning up and keeping things fixed and maintained.
All right. Okay, I'm on it.
So when your sympathetic adrenal medullary axis isn't working right, so that's the brain system that regulates cortisol in your body. When it isn't working right, it's like it's stuck in overdrive, and so the go team is constantly rushing around, keeping the tools going at full power, even though there's no emergency, and so they're just, everything's going flat out all the time. And as anybody knows who works with mechanical things, you can't run things at their peak potential all the time, otherwise they will break down, right? This dysfunction is called sustained activation, and your body is just draining its resources. It's not allowed to cool down. It's not allowed to recharge. And so your parasympathetic nervous system isn't able to do its maintenance. It isn't able to shut things down. The rest and recharge team isn't able to do their job.
Okie dokie.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Am I doing a good job of being quiet?
Better than you were. But that's okay. So now you can... Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Do you want to put anything in?
No.
You're the worst.
Well, what do you want me to put in now?
I mean, sometimes you're great about conversations, and other times you're like, yes, no. You're like a teenager.
Okay. Yes, that all makes sense. You've painted a beautiful mental picture in my mind of my little workhorse inside of my body, who's now afraid of lions.
Great.
I'm kind of worried there's one in the house.
There isn't a lion in the house.
I know that.
There's not a lot of lions around here. I've never met one outside in the wild.
Statistically, I know that's true.
Anyway, to kind of wrap up this section...
But I also know there's a zoo 4 hours from here.
Yes. So to wrap up this particular section here,
I'm afraid of lions.
This, yes. Tamara here is a perfect example
Burnout.
of the sympathetic nervous system.
And it's creative burnout this week because I have been working like crazy to get costumes and sets and stuff done ready for Christmas concert.
Yep. Because you're a perfectionist and you're going overboard on everything.
You say that, but I don't think I'm going overboard.
So the consequences of burnout can actually have structural and functional brain consequences. So it can actually change your brain. One of the things that causes that is something called excitotoxicity. Do you know what that is?
I know the term, like it sounds familiar, but I couldn't pull it out of the top of my head. But when you were just talking about that, I'm thinking previous to that, is that not why just all mothers become crazy?
Maybe.
Like, I know there's not a lot of female research on a lot of mental health things. A lot of what we do is based on research on males because previous research in the last century was mostly male dominated.
Well, and it's also based on like college students.
Yeah.
Because they're a captive audience.
Yeah, well, and then in the previous decade, that was predominantly a male thing. So I'm just saying, does that not explain what we go through as mothers? Makes us literally crazy because it changes the way our brain works. And I know, talking to other moms, we've all felt that. Like, my brain does not work the same anymore.
Could be. Yeah, there's definitely some structural and functional changes.
I think we should write a paper.
We should. Why all mothers are crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, excitotoxicity. Excitotoxicity is basically...
It's a good thing you can go back to where we left off because I had no idea where we were.
That's why I have an outline this time.
Slightly less random.
Excitotoxicity is when your nerves, like your nerve cells individually, are constantly firing or overfiring. Eventually, it just wears them out early and they just die. Fabulous. Yeah, so your nerves become old people before you do? Yeah, basically. Is that ever linked to like Alzheimer's or dementia and stuff as well? I don't know. No, actually, because, I mean, maybe excitotoxicity is like overwork is, but continually using your brain and developing your brain with like puzzles and learning new information. Yeah, no, I know that, but I mean, like when you've stimulated your nervous system to the point of like you're just so like you've killed your nerves. I don't know. I wouldn't guess that it would be associated with Alzheimer's because Alzheimer's is a cause caused by beta amyloid plaques. Yeah, basically brain diabetes. Kind of. Saw it in a YouTube video. Well, if you saw it in a YouTube video, it must be true. There's never any false information on YouTube. You're not even on the Tiki Talks. On the Reels. What's the Tiki? No. Oh, Instagram. That's it. Other consequences of burnout. Well, now I'm curious, and if there's any research been done on that, but continue. Well, make a note of it and look it up. Yes, but I'm also like oppositionally defiant, and so you told me to do it, so I won't. Don't write it down. Don't look it up. You're not allowed. Perfect. Yeah, you're oppositionally defiant unless it's something that you don't want to do, and then you're completely agreeable to it. Anyway. Stay focused, Andrew. Consequences of burnout. Structural and functional brain changes, excitotoxicity, systemic inflammation. Yeah, so then that's all linked to like all of the people who are going through, like me. Yep. Okay. Chronic pain syndromes like myself. Yeah, well, and that could be a triggering thing for me as well. Yeah, inflammatory things and
being allergic to everything.
Yeah. Immunosuppression is
See?
another.
That's what I'm saying. I said it's an autoimmune thing.
Well, you're immunohyporeactive. Hyperreactive, sorry, not hypo.
My nerves are still trying. We're fighting hard.
Yep. Metabolic syndrome.
Not giving in to the man.
You never give in to the man. Metabolic syndrome, so that's like prediabetes is associated with burnout. Cardiovascular
So then
disease.
it would then follow that Alzheimer's could be. Continue.
I haven't heard that link.
Because nobody's been smart enough to research it.
Or except for that one guy on the internet.
Right.
The one that you said on the Tickety Talks, according to you.
Oh, about brain plaque?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's
diabetes.
not what I was talking about. Continue. You didn't follow my train.
I did not. That's because your train is like...
We no longer need tracks. My train is freeform.
Your train definitely is a free-flowing train sometimes, that's for sure. It's like 15 different directions all at once.
Yeah. We can visit multiple countries at the same time. Continue. I'm enjoying our conversation today.
So there's a few key factors in the causation of burnout. And one of the main things that causes it is excessive workload, as you yourself are currently experiencing.
Not at all.
Not at all. You're not being
I
a
feel
mother,
fine.
a teacher, a master's student,
A volunteer for different organizations.
volunteer for our church, which is about to become a little bit more volunteer-y.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. This is my last week of classes for my master's. So I'm going to be like...
Well, yeah,
a strict
classes. You still
house.
have practicum coming up in the spring.
In the spring, hopefully. Unless that falls apart again.
It's not going to. You're going to think positively and not be burnt out and stressed out about it.
I'm not stressed out about it.
I
I'm
am.
looking forward to being just a house husband.
I'm not. Continue.
So, excessive workload. That's why it's important to...
Have community and family support.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is, but continue. I hear people talk about it.
You have family support. Just not as much as some people do or claim to have.
So you're waking up with the kids tonight?
You threw me off again.
Okay, continue.
So when you're working on creative projects, one of the things you can do to deal with the excessive workload is to not focus on the end product and focus on the next step. Right? Like you break a project into a smaller, more manageable task.
With a visual organizer?
Visual organizers work for some people. Can you explain visual organizers? Because they make no sense to me.
What do you mean?
Well, what's a visual organizer?
Chart where you organize...
Like a day planner?
Kind of. Yeah, it can be. For different people, it can be different things. It can be, for some people, it works really well. Like, to have your main thing in the center and then, like, your bubble and then draw things out like webbing off of. This is what all has to be done. It's just a way that you can visually display what needs to happen. And for everybody, that's going to look different.
So how would you suggest beginning a visual organizer? Like Google it, or is there like something that you have access to or have seen that works for you?
Partly because I think I'm a bit of a combo platter, and so my autistic side really likes everything to be precise and perfect, and my ADHD side can't remember where I put it.
So what's your alternative to a visual planner then?
Well, that's where it's really important to have routine involved with the visual planning, so you know where it's going to be and it's in a place that you would see it and you would check it, and it's important to have like the visuals in relation to what you have to do, right?
That's one of the reasons why I started using this Todoist app, is because it's on my phone, it's on my computer, it's on my iPad, and it's all synced. And so then when I add something to it, it pushes it to wherever, and then I have it as one of the largest icons on my screen. And so whenever I look at my phone or my tablet or my computer, there's that visual reminder of me of this task, this task, this task. And I find that
and for
to be
some
very
people
helpful.
that really works. For me, that doesn't help me at all, because once it's gone into the computer, it's like it never existed. I have to have something tactile. For me, the writing process helps
Like
with
a
it.
calendar.
A calendar can be great. A daily schedule with movable magnetic things or Velcro things or whatever, like used for kids at school. Things like that can be really helpful, and in different areas. When you're in burnout, I don't know, for me, I find it difficult to maintain those things, and I easily forget things. And so if you have you have to do this, this, and this before you leave this room. And on your way out, where you're going to look, you have that visual reminder of what you need to do. That can be helpful.
Yeah. You see a lot of people.
And for some people, it works for their phone. It would work better for me in my phone if there was alarms associated with everything, but I don't think anybody wants to have as many alarms going off. Yeah. Anyway, continue.
Speaking of being excitotoxic.
Well, I actually knew somebody who did that, and I was in a meeting with them on the library board, and her phone, just with reminders, in a 10-minute period went off 15.
That would drive me nuts.
Yeah. And she's like, oh yeah, I got to remember to do that. But then she just kept them all open. And it just was like that. Well, it was
visually overwhelming.
It was visually and like auditorily. I was over her organization system.
Yeah. That's where managing stress and managing your burnout with like the big whiteboard in the corner sort of idea.
Yeah. There are lots of graphic sort of designs like on Canva or Teachers Pay Teachers. You can go in and get some templates a lot of them are school-based, but they're easy enough to edit and
a lot of the ones that are school-based. Yeah. But yeah, you could easily find lots of
There's
them.
There's lots of workplace ones. I don't know as much about like the workplace calendaring thing, and I should be better about it than I am. But for me, electronic calendars don't work. I have tried to use them. For me, that's just not. I need the visual. Because when I close my eyes to look at it, I need to be able to bring it up and see it. And for whatever reason, if it's in the computer, I can't.
But when you write it down, you can.
Yep. Or I associate it with like the place on the wall. And I can close my eyes and see the calendar and see where the things are to remember what it is.
So that's an important thing to consider is if you have tried something like that, like a day planner, or I try on my phone, or I try a calendar, or whatever it is, just because that didn't work for you once doesn't mean a different strategy.
Yeah, well, and we were talking today in the car about like those digital calendars.
Yeah, the frame or whatever they're called.
Yeah, and I'd be willing to try, and I think it could be interesting to try and see if it works. Like our son, that might be something that he would engage more with and like more than, because he's at the point where he's too old for a lot of the cutesy little organizers for school, right? And it gets frustrating to him. So it might actually be more effective. And I think that's what you were just saying, is just be willing to try different things.
Yeah. Like for me, like this Todoist, the way
it drives you crazy.
The way it works clicked in my head. And it hasn't been like, I went from 0 to 100 and now I'm perfect. But there's aspects to it that are still probably not the best, but it's made a big difference for me in being able to actually maintain goals. The trick is to be consistent with it, like you said.
But yeah, and that's whatever it is, just be consistent with it. And even knowing, like for me, if I have, like my planner worked better for me when I had that was the little counter space in our old kitchen where it sat open, and I went to it and I knew where it was every day. But like right now, where I don't have, like my desk at school is not just my desk. I have to pack up the school every day because it's also a church. I find it very difficult to make the planner work.
Yeah. Because
it's not in the same spot. I have to get it in and out of the bag, and I just get frustrated by it. So I haven't found a system at this point yet.
That's working for you right now.
That's working for me in my current situation.
So this having a planner of some sort, whether it's a whiteboard, a notebook, or your phone, whatever it is, kind of leads into the second kind of core cause of creative burnout, and that's unclear goals. I think a lot of people get burnt out by the
goal-making process.
Well,
it's frustrating.
The goal-making process, but also like you have a dream of completing said project, right?
Maybe I have a dream song from Rapunzel.
Speaking of ADHD, somebody has a goal of making a Bombay chest of drawers, for example.
The Bombay chest of drawers.
It's one of those, like, you've seen the
What's the book with
dressers
Dr. Bombay?
with, I have no idea. But you know, those dressers with like curves everywhere. They're just, they're cool. Very difficult to make.
Bent.
Yeah, lots of steam bending and stuff in them.
Okay, I knew a word.
Yeah, but we have this, I have this big goal, and if you start that goal, that can become overwhelming and burn you out because you become focused on the end goal rather than focus on the steps in between. And so that's where like your daily planner shouldn't be tomorrow I'm going to work on the Bombay chest of drawers.
Right.
It should be, tomorrow I am going to cut joint number 1, 2, and 3, or even just joint number 1. Or maybe it's as simple as, tomorrow I need to sharpen a chisel, so that's my next step, right?
Uh-huh.
So breaking the big overwhelming goal into a small, more manageable goal takes away some of that sympathetic nervous system activation that keeps you on high edge because you're panicked because of this big, huge, overwhelming project. But if you have it broken down into a smaller goal, then you can, your brain can kind of relax. And if you have it written down, that also is another way of taking it out of your memory and putting it into a long-term storage sort of thing, instead of having to constantly maintain it in your brain, which increases your cognitive load.
I think that's part of why, like, for me, the calendar, something up high works better, because long-term memory is stored, like, when you want to store something for a kid who struggles with short-term memory, but you want to hold it up and to the left for, like, spelling words and different things like that. It will help put it into their long-term memory, and you will always want to have the whole thing there and associate a picture or something with it. And I think that's part of what, like, when I want to bring up the calendar, I know which month it is today, this, because I know the picture of this month on the calendar that I can then go down and sort through.
Why is it up and to the left?
I don't remember why. It was in some research I was reading. The why wasn't important to me. I just remember you're supposed to hold it up and to the left.
Pause here for a moment, because I think I have a theory as to why. Yeah, so after that brief pause, we're back, and it's kind of what I was thinking. Up and to the left. So if it's in your left visual field, then it's being processed by the right side of your brain, because your visual system crosses over. And so then your right side of your brain is involved in learning and remembering nonverbal information, like visual spatial data and like pictures.
Yeah.
So that would be interesting. It's just a way of, like, positioning things in your brain to...
Which then, like, plays into positioning things in your work environment and your creative space for productivity and for eliminating burnout. And that's what a lot of research too that I was reading, I don't know, a week or two ago, was talking about. So many classrooms, I know this always goes back because that's my life. Classrooms are really bad for kids on the spectrum because they're so overcluttered that it burns kids out just coming into the classroom.
Well, I think it's not just for neurodivergent kids. Everybody's burnt out by classrooms because teachers are all hoarders.
But if you think of a kid, like, if you're thinking of, like, the neurotypical and the neurodivergent, and the neurotypical kid's coming in with a bit of water in the bottom of his glass, if you add a bit more, he's still got room to move around. But if the neurodivergent kid's coming in and he's 3/4 full already, and he sees this overwhelming classroom with spinning things and glitter bombs and whatever else, they're done before you begin.
100 different colored things on the walls.
Yeah, it's too much.
Yeah, and I think...
Right, and so then our houses become too much. And for us right now, living in our little house that we're in, I'm really on edge all the time because there's too much.
Yeah, there's stuff everywhere.
And I can't escape it. And we go to visit your parents, and they're 80, and there's way too much. And it's overstimulating. And so I notice that in myself, that I have a harder time keeping things organized, because it's just like, where do you start?
Yeah. So yeah, that I think that being overwhelmed by not having things organized, whether it's like organizing your goals into a stepwise process, or organizing your workspace or your creative space, and that's where, like, if you're feeling uncomfortable in your workspace, then go ahead and move your computer to the left a little bit or to the right and make it feel good.
Yeah, but get rid of some stuff too. You don't need as much as you think you do.
Yeah.
And there is something, and we've had this discussion, like, there's definitely pressure from lots of people to be like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Things don't have to match. For some of us, it literally has to match, or I'm going to sit there and obsess about it and be frustrated. And that, enough of that is going to burn a person out too, because they just can't. And you can be like, oh, you should just let it go to therapy, whatever. Or just get things that match. They don't have to be new things. I'm not saying, like, but make your space somewhere where you can feel calm.
Yeah.
This is the pot calling the kettle black, because it's definitely not there right now.
Yep. I think that's when I lived in Los Angeles, I lived in Hacienda Heights for a bit, and there's lots of Chinese people there, or there was when I was there anyway. And one of the things that I had a few conversations about was the whole concept of feng shui.
Yeah.
And positioning
I think that's important
in the environment and stuff like that. And some of it I thought was, oh, that's really weird. But like, if I remember right, you're very rarely going to see somebody who believes in feng shui, like not singling anybody out, but there was very rarely a believer in the concept of feng shui who lived directly across from a intersection, because there was something about the flow there.
Yeah, you don't want your door opening to the
but it does speak to that in your personal environment too, like the flow or the energy of the environment, whatever terminology you want to use, does affect you, whether it's some magical thing, or whether it's just like the cognitive load of, I don't feel quite comfortable in here, or this particular thing is stimulating me wrong.
And to that end too, like, it's important to choose clothes that you're comfortable in, and if you know you're already overstimulated, that affects it too.
Yeah, sensory things as well.
Trying not to bring up my neurodivergent things, but I can't help myself.
So
I have a problem.
The third and final topic for today: self-imposed pressure. Under pressure, yes. That contributes a lot to burnout as well, and particularly in personal projects. Sometimes it really is okay to just, I know I had the goal of getting this done by X date, but if the deadline is self-imposed, it's really okay to say, oh, I'll push it off until next week. Or reassign the deadline to another week or something like that, to just give yourself that mental space.
And cry.
It's okay to cry. Unless you're me, then it's bad.
This is a weird podcast.
You didn't help with that. So some wrap-up tips for addressing the self-imposed deadline or self-imposed pressure.
You should wrap the wrap-up tips.
Yes. Focus on progress over perfection, right? Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to move on a little bit. And probably one of the most important things to do is just those progress over perfection. Yeah. Celebrate your small achievements and milestones. Because if you're focused on, I can't celebrate until the Bombay chest of drawers is done, you won't celebrate the fact that you learned how to do, dovetailing in a weird way, or steam bending or veneering or whatever these multiplicity of skills that you learn in the meantime. And so you're constantly overwhelmed by I can't celebrate until the end, and that contributes to that cognitive load and that burnout as well. Yeah. So kind of in wrap up for everybody, are you experiencing any signs of excessive workload, unclear goals, or any self-imposed pressure?
Yes.
Yes, me too. Not as much as you, though. That's because you're better than me.
Maybe it's because I'm married to you.
That causes a lot of pressure.
I don't even know where to go from there.
Well, I was trying to figure out some sort of segue into wrapping up here, but so out of the three topics, if anybody has...
I'm sorry. I'm sorry for today.
She's tired.
I am burnt out.
Okay. Which area resonates with you? Does anybody have any experiences that they want to share about, feeling... Please. Yeah, please share. Excessive workload, unclear goals, self-imposed pressure. Any of those feel like they're affecting you? If they are, love to hear it. I'd love to hear some personal experiences that we could share in the show as well. And maybe how you dealt with them, or even if you're just still dealing with them, just feel free to shoot an email or a voice memo. Just record it on your phone, or even a video if you want to email a video to questions@workshoptherapypodcast.com, and we'd love to share them on the show. Next episode, we're going to focus on overcoming creative barriers like the lack of inspiration, isolation, and maybe a little bit of fear of judgment.
I think you should have another guest. It's getting too personal at this point.
Do you want to read our shout out this week?
No, because I don't read people's names properly.
That's okay.
It's not.
Okay, fine. I don't know if I should do this in like a really shouty, excited voice.
Our children are sleeping.
A massive shout out to our incredible workshop therapy podcast founding father patrons.
Like, totally.
First up, we have the legendary Matthew of Argiano Serio, a true visionary in the world of craftsmanship. His skill and passion for creating masterpieces make him not just a patron, but a cornerstone of everything we do. Matthew, you are a living legend.
I don't even know what to say to you at this point in time.
You're the one that started the Valley Girl thing.
That's not Valley Girl. I don't know what that is.
Then there's the unstoppable Brad of Brad's Customs, whose creativity knows no bounds. Brad, your contributions don't just support us, they inspire us every day. You are the heartbeat of our community,
you're Southern.
And we are beyond grateful.
We are.
Next up, the incomparable Keith of Blackthorn Concepts. Keith, your ability to turn ideas into reality is nothing short of magical. Your influence in shaping our world is unmatched. We can't thank you enough for everything you do. And let's hear it for one and only Eric of Overall Makerworks. Eric, your unwavering dedication to the craft is what drives this whole journey forward. You are a true master. We're honored to have you with us on this incredible ride. Why are you looking at me like that? Now, let's raise a glass to Brandon of Tectonic Creations. Brandon, your passion for innovation and craftsmanship sets a new standard for excellence. You are the spark that lights the way for us all, and your support means the world, and of course, the Grant Alexander, a name that speaks for itself. Grant, your vision, your wisdom, and your leadership are the foundations on which we build, grow, and thrive. We wouldn't be here without you, and we can't thank you enough for your commitment to excellence. And last, but certainly not least, we would like to give a truly spectacular shout-out to our newest patron, Nicole Spagnolo. Nicole, your arrival is like a comet streaking through the sky, bright, bold, and utterly transformative. This is all sincere, by the way. May not sound very sincere.
It does not.
But I'm trying. I'm trying to make these things entertaining, so they're not boring.
It's scaring me.
Anyway. Back to the thank you for Nicole. Your support makes the workshop therapy even stronger, and we're thrilled to have you a part of the journey. The world is your oyster, and we're so lucky to have you along for the ride. Thank you again for your support. And thank you for each and every one of you for making the Workshop Therapy Podcast what it is today. You are the heartbeat of this community, and we will be forever grateful for your continued support. Say goodbye.
Goodbye.
You said it in that voice, and you expect me not to imitate it?
I was whispering.